Namaskar, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Namrata Singh and you are watching Perspective. India has reached a historic milestone in higher education. In the QS World University Rankings 2026, Indian institutions have delivered their best ever performance, with 54 universities making it to the list, including 12 IITs. This achievement places India as the fourth most represented country globally, behind only the US, the UK and China. What's even more impressive is that 8 Indian universities have debuted in the rankings this year, the highest number of new entrants from any country. From just 11 institutions in 2015 to 54 today, India has recorded a 5-fold rise, making it to the fastest rising G20 nation in these global rankings. QS is a British firm specializing in education and is regarded as one of the world's most trusted evaluators of higher education. So to unpack what this means for India's academic future and global standing, we are joined by a distinguished panel. I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Somak Chaudhary, Vice Chancellor of Ashoka University. We also have Dr. Ananya Mukherjee. She is Vice Chancellor of Shiv Nada University, Delhi NCR, recognized as an institution of eminence. Both my guests are joining us virtually. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you both with us.
Thank you very much.
First of all, congratulations to both of you on being among the new Indian entrants in the QS World University Rankings 2026.
Thank you.
Allow me to begin the discussion with you, Dr. Mukherjee. You know, India has reached a historic milestone in the QS Rankings 2026 with 54 institutions making the list, placing us as the fourth most represented country globally. It reflects a growing global recognition of India's academic strength, research output and contribution to knowledge. A proud moment for the country. So how do you see this achievement, ma'am?
Of course, it's a very wonderful feeling to be amongst the list. And as you know, that only 1,500 universities, if I'm not mistaken, worldwide were ranked out of about 8,000 which were assessed. And I think what holds also for Ashoka, that there is a category of small universities in the world. And I think we both belong to that very difficult category to be in the rankings, and only 26 small and comprehensive universities all over the world, I believe, have been ranked. And of those two would be the two sitting here today. So in many ways, I think it is very important. And for the small universities, which is defined as having under 5,000 students, it's also important to recognize that there is some additional criteria that we've had to meet just to qualify for being ranked. So in many ways, yes, it does reflect the very hard work that we put in. But I also hope that even beyond the rankings, the hard work that our faculty and students put in will also be recognized.
Right. Professor Ray Chaudhary, you know, 8 Indian universities debuted in the QS World University Rankings this year, and the highest number of new entrants from any country. And your university, Ashoka University, is among them. And it's a moment of pride and recognition. What's your reaction to this achievement? It must be a proud moment for you personally as well.
I'm very proud that we have achieved this. On behalf of Ashoka University, my university and my faculty, students, everybody, all stakeholders. And this is the first time these new universities, the 8 new universities, have come into the world ranking. What I want to also say is that this does not fully mean that Indian education has suddenly improved, or we've just jumped in quality overnight, that so many institutions are coming in, more than 50 this year amongst the 1,500, and a few years ago there was nothing there. It is also because the nature of Indian education in universities is changing in many ways. The criteria that are applied to evaluate these rankings include a lot of parameters that Indian universities never fulfilled for a long time on the international stage. One of them is, for example, the internationalization. I mean, a lot of marks are given for international faculty, international students. Another big component is the research component, how research active universities are, and in general, Indian universities, the best universities, often do not fulfill that criteria. Another big important thing is that we are competing with universities on the world stage, which are pretty big, much bigger than some of the universities that we have in India, like the two represented here, Ashoka and Shiv Nadar. So there are all these new things that one needs to bring in before we look at what our entrance into this list means. The nature of education has changed in the way I talked about, which is to do with internationalization. But the other thing that has happened is now in India, a very large number of a fraction of these universities are working in the private sector. And in the private sector, such as Ashoka and Shiv Nadar, bring in a very different kind of performance and the kinds of things that we offer to students and to our faculty. And that, in many ways, is on the same pedestal as the best in the world. And I think that is one of the things that is being recognized here. If you look at the list of 50 plus Indian universities, you would find not only the traditional well-known universities like the IITs and IISc, but also a large number of private universities who have built themselves to fulfill some of these models. And I'm very glad that our contribution is being recognized. And also on behalf of our faculty and students who put in a lot of work to get us to where we are.
Definitely, and nature of education has changed, and so India's rise in the QS rankings has been remarkable, from just 11 institutions in 2015 to 54 in 2026, a 5-fold increase. Nearly half of them improved their positions this year. 12 IITs feature prominently. So, Dr. Mukherjee, what does this upward trend tell us about the transformation underway in India's higher education landscape?
So a couple of things. One is, I think we have become bolder. Like, I think very few of us are ready to accept that India cannot compete. I think even though we face a lot of, in every country, higher education is not easy. There are a lot of barriers, but we still believe that we can. And the aspiration that we see in the country generally is also reflected in higher education. The second is, I think India is at a stage where, we have some of the best of private and public institutions working together. In fact, one of the things that we could focus on more to galvanize our strength is to see how our domestic public-private universities, and also between private universities, different kind of collaborations can take place in order to really, complement the strengths that each of us have developed. So as far as transformation is concerned, I see, of course, a rising commitment to research and innovation. But for that research and innovation to really take off, I think a lot more collaborative and consortium type of approaches need to be thought of. And when I see the missions, the national missions in different areas, I feel that there is a stage being set where we could all collaborate a lot more to strengthen the research, innovation, and the educational aspects that we are all trying to improve on.
Definitely. Professor Ray Chaudhary, like Dr. Mukherjee said, that different collaboration is needed between the government and private, institutions. And IIT Delhi has risen sharply from 197th position in 2024 to 123rd in 2026, driven by gains in employer reputation, academic standing, and research citation. So, overall, Indian institutions are also excelling in areas like citations as per faculties, sustainability, and international research networks, as you were also talking about that time. So, how do these improvements signal India's rising influence in global higher education, according to you?
That is the bit that actually signals how the nature of Indian education has changed. As I said, more and more research coming into the university sector is one of those important things. Previously, a lot of the research used to be exclusively done in research institutes, particularly in STEM. And now we can see a lot of the people who used to work in these areas, in the research institutes, moving into universities, both public and private. Also, students, there are a large number of people who work abroad, who have gone for education abroad, who are coming back to India, and they're coming back into universities as opposed to research institutions because they see the opportunity of research there. I mean, a lot of us have come back from abroad into these institutions. Both Professor Mukherjee and I spent most of our lives abroad, working in universities, who are also in these the top of these ranking lists. And we have seen how these universities work. And because of all of these researchers who've come back to the universities, they keep their international connections alive, research connections. We also build a lot of international connections. And as Professor Mukherjee is saying, within the country, because we have people who we've worked with all over the world during our careers, we do our work in tandem with them. Many of them are within the country, many of them are abroad, and we are always looking for new connections. These research networks help in building our reputation globally, and that's what's happening. You can see academic reputation has gone up, the research networks have gone up, the quality of research and innovation has gone up, and that is why you're also seeing citations for faculty coming up. Because if you don't do impactful research, you don't get citations. You can write a paper, I mean, you can write 100 papers every year, and they can go into journals that don't matter, and people don't look at it.
Right.
And the citations are going up. And lastly, most importantly, is that the connection between the private sector and the public sector is important. That's what's happening. But more importantly, for STEM research in particular, the connection between industry and university is happening. There's a lot of synergy between the products of our STEM research that are now going into industry. That leads to not only some of the ranking parameters going up, because the industry connection is there, but the impact of this research being recognized. The university's contribution to research is being recognized. And that is very important. This is one of the things we should do moving forward, because the government also, through its research funding model, is also encouraging how the industrial connection should be encouraged.
Definitely. So, we all agree that public and private sectors collaboration is, necessary. It's important. And also this year, India's representation in the QS ranking includes a diverse mix from IITs and central universities to private and deemed to be universities. So, Dr. Mukherjee, how significant is this broad-based inclusion for the future of India's higher education ecosystem?
It's very significant. So, our new education policy very strongly makes a case for universities or institutions which are multi-domain. And the universities which are at the top of these ranking lists, you will see go from social sciences to biology to STEM to nursing to professional degrees. And that breadth, while it is very difficult to create, does give a lot of synergies. And it is very important that in this list now, of course, we have the IITs on the top, as they always will be, probably. But the entrance of multidisciplinary universities is very important. And my appeal to ranking agencies would be that find a way to capture the breadth of and the richness of the multidisciplinary research and teaching that happens in universities, which are different from engineering institutions or science institutions. It's a very important exercise to take up.
So, Professor A. Chaudhary, for our viewers, could you briefly explain the methodology behind the QS World University Rankings, how the data is compiled, how are the rankings determined, and what key indicators does QS consider in the evaluation process?
So yes, so that was one of the things I was saying, that we, as Indian universities, often did not fulfill some of these criteria. So one of the things that we are doing very well in, Indian universities are doing very well in now, are things like, so there are about 10 parameters, the large, largely, and within them there are some fine points that you have to look at. So there is something called the faculty student ratio. So in Indian universities, that is actually quite good, particularly in the IITs, particularly in the new private universities. It's roughly between 10 to 15 students per faculty. Whereas in many other universities and in public state universities in India, a lot of them don't fulfill this criterion. So if you're between 10 and 15, you get very high marks for it. And so we are coming into that range where we can compete. And many of the Indian universities have done very well there. There is another thing which is called international faculty and international students.
Okay.
Now, in Indian public universities, international students and international faculty were not allowed for a very long time. But now, in the institutes of eminence, in the high-ranking universities, and particularly private universities, it is very common. We have a lot of international faculty in our university, and so students, and so those are two criteria. There's another called academic reputation. They send out questionnaires. The QS does send out questionnaires to a large number of people, both in industry as well as the academic world, asking people to rank universities, right? And so the perception that these universities have in the international academic community, and also the community of people who hire our products, our students, the employer community, they actually get these questionnaires. So clearly, in the world academic community, Indian universities' perception is increasing. And so we are getting ranked higher. But employers are also recognizing that the students who are coming out of our universities have the right skills. And finally, so there's something called the employment outcome,
Okay.
which actually has how many students are being employed in what sector, what fraction of our students are getting a job within a year after leaving university. These figures are very important. Now, a lot of universities traditionally never paid any attention to these figures. And you will see that the universities who are in this ranking have done quite a lot to make sure their students get jobs, they have the right skills, etc. And finally is the research parameter. So there are a few parameters to do with research. There's citations per faculty, or the number of research papers, how many networks we have with how many international universities, and all that matters in marking in there. And there is another category which is to do with sustainability. So how
Okay.
sustainable our campuses, and how we pay attention to the SDGs of the United Nations, and things like that. And you see a modern university campus, there's a lot of work is being done on sustainability, on how we treat our waste, how we are going towards a kind of so that we don't harm the environment, renewable energy, and things like that. So all that matters. All of these go into the QS rankings. Many of these don't go into, for example, our national rankings. The national ranking parameters in IRF is very different. And so that is why people who do, the universities who do well in the NIRF are not necessarily the ones that do very well in QS or in the Times Higher.
Okay, okay. Dr. Mukherjee, while researching, I came across the fact that QS has recently fine-tuned its scoring methodology to better reflect institutional performance. So, could you explain what exactly has changed and how these changes affect the way we interpret the rankings compared to the previous years?
So, in terms of the previous years, I think I in terms of how exactly they have modified the rankings, I won't be able to tell you in terms of previous years, because it's not always so clear to us when we are providing the data, right? But there are some things I would like to, in terms of, you asked about interpretation.
Right.
For example, this global employer survey that Shomak was mentioning, or academic reputation, there is a huge difference in weightage from if a survey is filled in by somebody from outside your country vis-a-vis when it's filled in inside your country. So we are a university who is only 12 years old. And for our alumni, many of them have a first job. Yes, many of them are outside India. But to have a global reputation of the university through our alumni is very difficult for us to achieve, right? So, in terms of interpreting, those are things that we should take into account, that when you're competing with an MIT or a Caltech or an Oxford, the reputation of amongst global employers is very difficult to reach for a university who is just getting into the ranking.
Okay. Professor Chaudhary, in the ancient Indian texts, it is said that the wealth of knowledge is the supreme wealth. And over the years, India has worked to preserve and pass on this legacy to its youth. So in the last decade alone, there's been a 318% surge in India's representation in global rankings, the highest among G20 nations. So how do you see this positive leap in higher education, and what does it say about the direction we are heading in?
See, I'll tell you one thing. First of all, India is a country where the number of people in the range of higher education is the highest in the world, right?
Right.
And we are moving in a direction in which our population growth is going in a direction such that India, for the foreseeable future, is going to have the largest number of people who are eligible for higher education in that range of age. And we are only providing higher education to a quarter of them right now. And in the Viksit Bharat goals for 2047, we want to do it for 50% of them. So that's a huge expansion of this sector that we need. The quality is the only thing that is going to give us hope that we'll reach there, because currently there are 1.8 million, 18 lakh students who are abroad, enrolled Indian students who are enrolled in universities abroad. 5 lakh crore rupees are spent every year for students studying abroad, right?
Right.
Now, these students, if they don't get the confidence that Indian universities are of the same rank as the universities abroad, will not choose to remain in India and study in India. So in order to get the Indian enrollment ratio up to the levels that the government really wants, we have to make sure that we are doing it in a way where the quality is preserved. Otherwise, the number of young people in the country doesn't matter, because we are not providing them quality education. So this is where our getting into the ranking list now and the number of universities in the ranking list increasing is very, very important to give the message to the young people that world-class education is available within India, both for teaching and for research. And one does not need to go and spend their money in universities abroad if they can actually get the same level of education within India. And so I think this has come at the right time when this rapid expansion is envisaged in India. I just hope that we expand our university sector in the next 10, 20 years, keeping in mind that we have to build institutions of this caliber, of this standard, so that next year, instead of 54 universities, there are 100 universities in the top 1,500 and more next year. And only then will this become sustainable and also successful.
Definitely. Professor Chaudhary said that, world-class education is now available in India. So, Dr. Mukherjee, at the time of independence, India had just 17 universities and a literacy rate was just 14%. Today, we have 495 state public universities and over 46,000 affiliated institutions, accounting for 81% of total student enrollment. And this reflects the remarkable evolution and expansion of our higher education ecosystem. So how do you view this journey?
Oh, it's a fantastic journey, and by any standards. But most important is, yes, is the quality uniform? No, we have gaps in quality. Everything is true. However, what is remarkable now is the aspiration of the people for education. I think this is absolutely remarkable. And if we can continue to proceed in improving education, I would go so far as to say that not only do we provide world class education that already exists, we create new models of world class education which others will aspire to fulfill. And we have many ingredients. Only one thing I'll add is we do have to pay special attention to the gender inequality in education, and also, correcting. Everybody has acknowledged that for Viksit Bharat, the aspiration and the participation of women is extremely necessary. And I would say that education is an area where that can be at the forefront, and that will definitely be my hope.
Okay, so the QS World University rankings reflect growing global confidence in India's higher education. With more institutions featured and many rising in rank, the impact of the National Education Policy 2020 and ongoing reforms is clearly visible. Due to time constraints, I'm only able to take up these many questions today, but it's been an enriching discussion. Well, that's it on this edition of Perspective. Thank you to both of you for joining us. Viewers, thank you for watching us. Sansad TV, stay tuned. To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.